7:01. We're going to get started. Now you're going to see some things at the bottom of your screen. Hold on. I don't know why this is not working. Hold on. I was trying to get the live transcription to work because I do know that one of our participants is hard of hearing. So I'll have to have it transcribed after if for whatever reason the closed captioning isn't working. But we're going to get started. So I'm going to admit a person with a sketchy name. If this person happens to be a Zoom bomber and we get kicked out, just come back. I'm going to ask this person the name. Kay, can you hear me? Kay, coming in. Can you hear me? Kay, if you hear me, can you type in chat? Can't speak out loud. Kay, are you muted? You can unmute yourself, Kay, if you want, or you can speak in chat. Kay, I can't leave you in this group with the name that you have in Zoom because an ad doesn't sound legit to me. So if I don't hear from you in 10 seconds, I'm going to boot you out of the room. If you want to come back, you need to change your name first, and then I'll let you back in. Okay? Just because I do this every day, 57 times a day. So in my humble experience, Zoom bombers tend to have names like yours. All right, so since I have not heard from you, I'm going to kick you out of the room. If you want to come back in, just change your name. Oh, she changed her name. Okay. Ashley. All right. All right. We are going to get started and talk about food. So, welcome everybody. Let me just explain how Zoom works in case you're brand new and have never been here before. But at the bottom of your screen, different toolbars. There are different little icons, right? It'll say there are 25 people in the room right now. There's a poll. There's a chat function. If you have any questions at any time, you can click on that chat and you can type your question in there. Jim is going to be my faithful assistant and he's going to interrupt me if you have a question because he doesn't know that, but he's going to do that because I don't often see the questions. If I'm doing something else, I may not see the question. But we definitely want to make sure your questions. And this is being recorded, so anything that's on here will be available on YouTube later, so you can come back and watch the parts that are most interesting to you and share with your friends or whatever. So for those of you who've not met me, my name is Beth Ritter-Guth, and my trail name is Squeak, and I'm a long-distance hiker on the Appalachian Trail. And I do a whole lot of other things associated with the trail and with backpacking, with hiking. And this was a 4-part series. We did not meet the last time because I ended up having to work because somebody called off. So that will be rescheduled. That was on tents and hammocks, tents versus hammocks. But tonight we're going to be talking about cooking. So you'll see at the bottom that you have a little reaction button. So click on that and give me a thumbs up if you've ever been backpacking before. So if you've been backpacking, give a little thumbs up. So Pam Root has been backpacking, Julie and Tina and Cindy and Joanne. Pat, where's your thumbs up? I know you've been backpacking. H. Roberts and Michael. Okay, so a few of you. If you've never been backpacking, you can do the little ta-da, which is like the little horn. Do a little ta-da symbol for reaction. If you've never been backpacking, you've never gone overnight on a trail, use the little ta-da. Well, you are in the right place. So the reason we're doing ta-da is if you've never been backpacking, this series is for you. This is to learn how to do it when you want to go. So Restart is the name of the group that this comes out of. You're all members because that's how you signed up. But that hiking group is really designed for people who are new to hiking or returning to hiking after being away from it. For people who like to go a little bit slower. It's not a marathon hiking group. And most of our hikes are not backpacking trips. Most of the hikes that are turtle rated, which is the easy rating, they are less than 3 miles with little terrain variation. If it's a turbot hike, that's a turtle rabbit hike. And that means that there's more terrain change and a little bit longer. And then, you know, you can be an expert hiker and go on those hikes, but they won't be that interesting. Other hiking groups are probably more appropriate if you're a very skilled hiker. But if you're brand new to backpacking and you don't know what to take or what to do, all of the gear and all of the words and all of the things you need to know get to be confusing. And there's a lot of information out there. I am not an expert. I am just a hobbyist. I am passionate about backpacking. I'm passionate about hiking, and I love to be on trails. So what I'm going to talk about tonight are just things that I've learned along the way. And Jim here is a long distance backpacker also. He's going to have different setups. There's no right or wrong way. And I think Jim would agree with me. You test a lot of this stuff out and you figure out what works best for you. So there's not one recipe that works for everybody. When I talk about how I cook food, that may not work for you, and that's okay. But at least you'll know your options. So the first thing that we're going to start off with, your very first thing, is what kind of food do you take and how do you store it? So I would like to introduce you to my best friend, the Ziploc bag. This is the Ziploc bag, and this is your best friend, because Ziploc bags are the way that you carry most of your things in your pack, right? Your toilet paper goes in here with your sanitizer and your little scoop if you have one, right? All your garbage is going to go in here because you're going to pack out any garbage that you have. And I do all of my cooking in these bags, right? And Ziploc bags are the one thing that I would say you want to be brand specific about, especially when it comes to cooking, because you're going to cook in this bag, and that really does need, this is hefty. I would not use this to cook in. I would only use the Ziploc freezer bag to cook in. I didn't have one handy, but so I have hefty big bags, right, that I use for other things, but I don't cook in these. I only cook in Ziploc freezer bags, because if you cook in these, they melt, you know, if you leave it in too long. All right, and we're going to talk about cooking and why you would cook in here. So they do sell like Mountain House meals and things like that. I think that they're really salty, and I don't find any of them tasty. Like, there's not one yet that I've liked. And I feel like the portions are too big. Like, I can't eat a whole one. I mean, like, not only is it not good, now I got to carry it around because I have to pack it back out because I can't eat a whole one. But if you do get Mountain House and you do like them, break them down at home before you go out and put them in Ziploc bags, so that what your cooking becomes is cooking water. You're going to boil water and you're going to pour water into your Ziploc bags. And so even Mountain House, things like that, you can break them down ahead of time into portions that you can eat. So when you're on the trail, especially if you're a new hiker, you tend not to be hungry while you're hiking because you're working really hard and you're really concentrated. So you have to remind yourself to drink water, right, and to eat little snacks. And you want to have like high protein things that are going to get you through, right, like M&Ms and like beef jerky and things like that. And then if you become a long distance backpacker, you tend to eat a lot of calories to keep your fuel going, right, to keep you moving. But if you're just going out for a weekend hike, it's not an excuse to overeat M&Ms or s'mores or anything like that, right? So you need to make sure that you're eating regularly, giving yourself fuel. And so if you've been with me, you know that I always say that backpacking is not camping. So be sure to know the difference. Camping is camping. And that's when you take your car and you drive your cast iron pans and all of your cool foods and your eggs and your whatever, your bacon. You're going to take that and you're going to cook it over a campfire in a Dutch oven. You're not going to cook over a campfire when you're backpacking, because you really don't want, after hiking a 10-mile day, 10 miles if you're a new hiker, 10 to 12 or 10 to 15 if you're a middle hiker, and over 15 if you're an expert hiker, you really don't want to mess with a fire at the end of the day, right? You might, if there's a lot of people camping with you, you might do it because, you know, you want to have fun. But most of the time, I don't know, Jim, I don't know how often you make fires, but I very rarely make a fire because I'm tired and I don't want to have to babysit the fire. I don't have to worry about water and putting it out and being safe. I don't bother with a fire. Do you, Jim, do you make fires a lot when you're backpacking? Yeah. Never. I never make a fire because it's a lot to do with a fire. And cooking over a campfire is a lot of work. It's a lot more work than you think it is, right? Like, you need to cook on coals. So that means you have to be burning the fire for a while to get those coals nice and hot. So for backpacking, you're not cooking over a campfire. You're cooking one of these. So, and we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about little mini stoves. We're going to talk about the jet boil method, and we're going to talk about alcohol stoves. So the 3 ways that you can cook. But first you need to know what kind of food to take and how to store it. So Ziploc bags are your favorite. Now, there's a lot of debate about whether you should hang a bear bag. In New Jersey, if you hike the trail, there are bear boxes every shelter, right? Some places, like the Shenandoahs, they require a bear can or a bear bag. So people are like, well, what is that? So a bear can is this. You can see this is a bear can, right? And you can't see this, but there are 2 little knobbies on here that make this almost impossible for bears to open. There's one smart bear that knows how to open it. She lives up in New England. But the way that you pull this off, and you just put all your smellies in. And we talk about smellies, we're talking about all of your smellies. So like your toothpaste, and if you have deodorant, if you'd have perfume, anything that smells like anything should go in here at night. And this should be placed away from your tent, like away from your tent, 500 feet at least, more if you can remember where it is. What I do so that I remember where I put it, I put it to the back of my tent, 500 feet. So my tent door, because I use a tent, I don't hammock. My tent door always faces the direction in which I'm going to go in the morning. I always do that because I'm not going to remember in the morning because, I'm not a morning person. So I always face my tent door in the direction I'm going. And then my back door behind my tent, 500 feet is where this is going to go, or more. And you're going to put it down in a ditch. And I can honestly say that the few times I carry this, I honestly don't carry this much. I carry my Ursack more, but nobody's ever messed with it. So the top comes off. This also does make a handy little table and a little stool if you need one. And then you put all your smellies in it. So like I have like oatmeal in here, and I have little tasty bars in here, and I have these things that I love that are a pro tip that I got from a thru hiker that stayed at my house. These are called Big Otters. And you know those little magic towels that you get kids, and then it's like Superman, you put a little water on it and it unfolds to be a Superman? These are teeny little lightweight tabs that make little dishcloths. So I throw a bunch of these in, and I use them to clean out my pot and stuff. I don't actually cook in my pot. I only ever cook water, but I carry these in here. I use my bear can for storage because I don't actually carry my bear can very often. And, there's all kinds of stuff, but like this is like a little container that you could put like soap in it if you wanted to. But just remember that every ounce that you put in your pack, you have to carry. And it might not seem like a lot. Well, this is only 3 ounces. Well, 3 ounces plus that 3 ounces plus that 6 ounces plus that pound, all of it's going to add up. So, like this is cute, and it was bought and put in my stocking for Christmas, but I would never take this because it would add weight and I don't need it. But the first stove I'm going to show you is an alcohol stove. If anybody here was in the military, this will look very familiar to you because this is the military stove. And this one is compliments of the Army. So this is an alcohol stove, and it opens up, and you put your alcohol tabs in here, and then you keep this top here like this, and then you're going to sit your cup, which is not going to have plastic on it. It's going to be a metal cup like your Stanley cup. You're going to sit it on top of it, and it's going to cook. Now, alcohol stoves work great. They take a little bit longer. They're a little bit more environmentally friendly because you're not throwing away gas cans all the time. But I find them to be very dangerous, and I feel like I'm going to burn down the forest all the time. So I made, out of aluminum foil from a dollar store pan, like a little, you set it on here, and then it breaks the wind around it so it doesn't spread out. So, you know, on a really windy day, like I'm always afraid that I'm going to burn down the forest. So I like alcohol because it is environmentally friendly, more environmentally friendly than all the cans, the butane cans, and the gas cans. But I just always get nervous. But it's, you know, little stove, little shield, and then the little tabs for it. I might be out of tabs, actually. I smell them. They're in here somewhere. I guess, oh, maybe they're in here. Here they are. The little tabs are just, they smell awful. I don't know if you can see them. But I put 2 of them in because that cooks the water a little faster. But I very rarely use this stove. Like this is when I teach the Girl Scouts all the different kinds of ways you can cook. We do one of each kind of stove, so I more use it for that than I use it for anything else. But you need to keep this because it smells terrible. You need to keep it in your smelly bag. So that is your gas stove. And then your other kind of stove is just a mini stove that attaches to the top of a gas can. So I don't know if you can see it, but when you lift it up, again, it's going to work just like, this one isn't mine. I borrowed this from a friend because somebody borrowed mine. But you're going to do the same thing. You're going to put your cup on top. You're going to turn this little thing, and it's going to light up, and then you're going to cook your pot on top. So that's a mini mo. There's all kinds of different names. There's lots of aftermarket ones. Honestly, I've had the expensive kind. I've had the cheap kind. They all kind of work the same. They are so easily lost because they're so tiny. Because when this comes off, if I can get it off. If I can get it off. This one's been sitting out here. When it comes off, it's a pocket rocket, right? It's a pocket stove. So it packs up super tiny and they get really lost, right? Some of them come in like containers, but when you're trying to drop weight, you often get rid of that container and then you just have this. And so they get lost. And then the cans they come in, it's hard to find these tinier cans. Like you can't get these at Cabela's. They can't ship these to you. You actually have to go to a store to buy them. Most of the cans that you find are going to be this bigger can, right? So there's this kind. I like this kind because it fits in my Jetboil, which I'm going to show you. So I don't use these 2 methods of cooking other than with the Girl Scouts. I use a Jetboil. So this is a Jetboil and has a lid. Take that off. It's got a little stove compartment. It's got a little cup, but I've actually never used this as a cup. But you could use this as a cup if you wanted to. And then this part attaches to this part. And then you attach this whole thing to your gas can. And when it's hot, when the water is hot, you fill this with water. When the water is hot, this thing here turns orange. I don't know if you can see this. This turns orange when the water is hot. And you can see that I never really cook in here. All I ever make in here is water. And then I pour water into bags to make different meals. So the only thing I do make in here is tea. I drink hot tea. So after I'm done with my breakfast, I'll make a cup of tea. And then I'll hike with my cup of tea if I don't have a lot of rocks coming up. But I have to say the one disadvantage to this is that it's bulky and big and takes up some serious real estate in my pack. If I could, I would just slip this in here, this one in here like that, and then this goes on the bottom and this goes on top. So it's all self-contained, which is nice, but it is a big cup. My other cup, my Stanley cup, is half the size and a little bit smaller. Jim, what do you use? Which method of cooking do you use?
So I usually use just a mini stove. couple comments to them as well. Pat, I don't know if you can see them.
Yep, Pat says she puts hers in her cook pot. You put what in your cook pot, Pat?
Actually, I have a titanium hose that I use for cook pot, 750 milliliters. My small canister of fuel and little stove, the second one, so that it gets fast. Fits in there along with the collapsible cup and everything. It just all stays together in one package.
Okay. Anybody else use it? Bob said he uses a Sterno folding stove, and 1 can of Sterno, and trioxane fuel bars in the military type folding stove. Yep, that will work too. So there are lots of different methods, and I've tried all of them. So, take them out, cook outside. It's getting dark here. If it were a little bit later, I would have been outside lighting them up for you so you could see what they look like lit up. But try them out, borrow one from a friend, and see which one that you're most comfortable with. I really like cooking with the jet boil because I like tea, and I drink tea in camp. I'm going to drink some tea now. It's my super high hygienic way of drinking tea. So your stove, some people go cookless too. Some people don't carry a stove at all, and they do all cold food, and that's okay too. But to store your food, you want to be really careful. So this is a dry bag, right? And this is for kayaking. So I just got this for my kayak because I ripped my last one. And this is a great bag, but it's heavy and it's not meant for backpacking. So be really careful when you pick, if you're not going to use a bear can, and bear cans take up a lot of real estate in your backpack and they're heavy, like compared to other things, right? So they take up a lot of real estate in your backpack. So you're like, oh, I'll just use the bag. Make sure that you're getting the right bag. This is a great bag, but it's not meant for food. This is not meant for food. The kind of bag that you need for food, and the one that's approved in the Shenandoah, for example, is a Yursak, and that's this bag. And I have the big one, right? So this is the big Yursak, and in that sack is a specialized Ziploc bag, and it keeps all the smellies out. And you can buy these for $20. So you definitely want to get this kind of bag, and then this goes inside of here, and then this gets tied to a tree. So you can throw a bag if you want. Some people like to throw bear bags. I have very poor eyesight, so it's really hard for me to throw a bear bag. I don't really do it well. Some places have bear boxes, like in New Jersey, and some places have bear cords where you tie it up and then use like a winch system to tie up the food. So your food should just be away from you. Your smellies should be away from you. Raccoons really, I think, and mice are probably more of a concern than bears, really. Raccoons are thieves and mice are little thieves also. So, it's not that they can't get to your food, right? They can get to your bear can and they can get to your Yursak that's tied to a tree. They just can't get it down. They can't get it off and they can't get into it. So inside this very smelly bag, I have my food organized by what it is. So this is like a little treat bag. And I have in here because I never know what I'm going to be hungry for. I have little goldfish. And I have a nature bar. These are cookies. Now, if I'm only going overnight, I'm not going to take all of these snacks. I'm going to go through this because I don't want to carry extra weight for things I know that I'm not going to eat. I have a Rice Krispie treat in here. So these are all the like little treat bars. And then I have, so I might, like, if I was just going overnight, I maybe take 2 of these. Because I'm going to have M&Ms in my backpack, in the hip pocket. I'm going to have some kind of snack in there. And then sometimes, you want to try something delicious like this beautiful thing of oats, right? But I would never actually backpack with this because this is just a pain in the rear end as a container. So what I would do is take this off, take the lid off, shake the container out into a Ziploc bag, and then cook it in the Ziploc bag. Because the Ziploc bag is much easier to pack, right? And it's much easier to pack out with your trash, right? So even like this is beautiful packaging. Love the packaging, but I would never keep this in this package. This is like my main food bag. This is where I have like all my meals. I eat a lot of ramen. I never eat ramen when I'm at home. But you can add things to ramen. You can add pink salmon. You can add chicken. I have peanut butter, just packets, because I like peanut butter. I have all kinds of things. This is prison peanut butter. I've never been to prison, but my brother works at it, but it's fantastic prison. It's like the same as army peanut butter. At night, I like to have something different than water to drink, so I pack the little pink Weilers, pink lemonade, because I like pink lemonade. And so this is my ramen in here, and then I'll add stuff to it. And then I also have rice sides by Knorr. I don't eat a lot of tortillas and stuff like that, but I do always have jerky on me. I always have pepperoni and turkey bites. I always keep those handy because that's what I snack on during the day. And I tend not to eat a whole lot in camp at night because I'm snacking all day and I'm really just too tired. But one of my favorite snacks for at night are these honey stinger waffles. I think they're delicious. Jim, what are your favorite backpacking foods?
Backpacking foods.
And really it comes down to taste. Like some people do like tortillas with pepperoni in them or tortillas with honey. For breakfast, they'll do tortilla wraps. I don't actually like tortillas at all. The one thing that I sacrifice in weight, but I just got new little honey packets, is I was last season lugging around this big thing of honey because I don't drink coffee, but I do drink tea. So my tea is in here and my big thing of honey. But now I have some smaller honeys to take, so I don't have to lug around that big bottle. But if you drink coffee, plan for it. You're going to need to bring, they have single serving coffee packets, and they do have filters and things like that that you can throw over the top of your pot so that you can filter your coffee and stuff. And then if you use like Splenda or sugar or whatever, creamers, non-dairy creamer, make sure you pack all that stuff. And I use the little towels, the little Big Otters, but, you know, have like, you know, a towel or whatever you have. And then you want to have, where did it go? I just bought a new one because I lost mine. I use a titanium spork. Fell on the floor. Hold on. I just bought a new one. I use this for all of my eating. I have one fork. It's one spork. I use one thing. It stirs everything. It cooks everything. Because you don't really need to have like a whole mess kit. I don't have a plate. I don't have an additional cup. I just have this one spork. I have not, Catherine. Do you know anything about them? Good luck. You'll have to let us know how that goes. That is my fear. Yeah. Good question. Good question. How many meals do you plan in a day of backpacking? That's a really good question. So it really depends because I snack all day. So I'm eating turkey bites, pepperoni, jerky. Those are my three favorite things, and M&Ms all day long. Every time I stop, I'm gonna eat a little handful, like a few M&Ms and some turkey bites. And so by the time I get to camp, I'm really not all that hungry. Like I'm not like dying of starvation. The most I can get off from work is 10 days. So on a 10-day hike, about day 7, I start to get more hungry than I normally would at home. So then I plan out like lunches and dinners and stuff. But, lunch is like, a pack of ramen, and then I'll eat for dinner whatever I didn't finish at lunch or whatever. I tend not to make anything with tortillas. I know a lot of people do dig the tortilla stuff. But since you're snacking all day long, like dinner is not an event in backpacking the way it is when you car camp. Like if you're coming on our trip to French Creek next weekend, like we'll have more elaborate meals because we're going to be cooking on stoves and, people are going to be cooking yummy things. It's like you're eating to fuel yourself. You're not eating for necessarily pleasure. You're not making s'mores. I don't know. Have you ever made s'mores backpacking, Jim? I wouldn't want to carry all that crap.
I don't make s'mores, but I do it a little differently. I do lunch and dinner,
You're way more planned than I am. I just snack and graze all day long when I'm hungry and I stop, and I have to remind myself to drink water. That's like the hardest thing. I can remember, and I have to remind myself to eat something little. But it is good practice to have breakfast, lunch, and dinner to make sure that you're planning something. And you can make your own dehydrated meals. You can make anything. The north side, you can cook right in the pack of north side. You can pour water right in there. You can believe it or not, you wouldn't think this is true, but you can actually pour water into your oatmeal, the little packs for oatmeal. You can pour water in there and like it'll retain it and you can eat it. Don't cook in your pot if you're going to just do a one pot, because then you have to clean it out. And oatmeal is the nastiest thing to get out of there. It sticks like crazy. So I don't cook in my pot. I cook water in my pot and I pour my water into stuff. Catherine has a great recipe here. If you're a tortilla person, a tiny bag of sugar and cinnamon sprinkled on a rolled up warm tortilla is a nice way to end your evening with a cup of tea. See, we could totally hang together. I would drink my tea, and you would eat yours. I do like cinnamon and sugar. I don't hate tortillas, but I'm just not like, it's not my go-to thing. And you kind of get sick of the same things on the trail. But I kind of have like my trail food persona. I don't actually like ramen that much, and I never eat it unless I'm backpacking. It's the only time I eat it. But there's something about eating like ramen on Springer Mountain, right? Like you feel like that's what you should be eating on Springer Mountain. Anybody else have any good recipes they want to share? So which one do you think that you would use more? Would you use the Jetboil system, the alcohol stove, or the mini rocket, pocket rocket? Which one do you think you would use more?
I would love to use the alcohol. I saw somebody just put a bunch of alcohol into small bottle, which I thought was very good.
That's why I don't use alcohol. The flames shooting freak me out, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna be the person to burn down the. What's hard to get? Oh, well, you can get these cans. These cans are harder to find than the bigger cans. Most people just hike with the bigger cans. What did I do with my bigger can? Like the taller can. Most people just hike with those. Most people, you can get these, but it just depends on like what the outfitter has where you are. Most people, in fact, I would say 99% of everybody else carries the big ones. I just happen to have a tiny one here because somebody left it here. But the bigger can is, I mean, it just fits in your pack. You wedge it in there and it gets lighter each time. I'm, a big tree hugger myself. I like the alcohol stove because I feel like it's so much more efficient and it's so much less waste. But like those shooting flames, even with the windbreaker thing, like it scares the crap out of me. And I'm always afraid I'm just going to burn down the forest. Like like Henry David Thoreau. I was an English professor before I became a dean. Henry David Thoreau, what he was known for in Concord was burning down the forest. That's why he went to Walden Pond, because he had to make peace with the forest. That would be me. I would burn down the forest. I won't do that. So Cindy, Bob, let's see what, I have to scroll up. Bob. Damien says he uses a mini stove. Mara says she's going to use a Jetboil until she gets more experience. Bob said he has fantastic results with the Sterno folding stove. Bob, do you want to talk a little bit about the Sterno folding stove? Because I don't really know a lot about that. How does it work? I can hear you, Bob. That's I love stuff like that. Yeah. That's awesome. And I think I know somebody else who uses sterno. I think I've met somebody who uses another person who uses sterno. For my birthday this year, my best friend made me a campfire out of sternos and a little fire. Is that GMS kit heavy? There's a weight thing. And it's interesting because ultralight is a thing now, but when I first started backpacking when I was younger, if you've been with me, you know this story. I learned to backpack with the Girl Scouts, led Girl Scouts out into the woods. And in those olden days, back in the olden days, 30 years ago, they didn't have all this ultralight stuff. So like the girl that I with Tracy, who'll watch this later because she's hard of hearing. She has the full Girl Scout mess kit, and she still takes it. She's like, I don't care if it's heavy, I like it. So really, it's you. Like you can be ultralight. Like I sacrifice. Like I have to have a pillow, so I have a backpacker's pillow. Like there are things like I'm willing to carry them. I'm willing to carry that big old jar of honey because I like real honey. And that was the only that I could get my real honey in that big jar. But now I found real honey in little packets. So like, what you're willing to carry and just plan about how long you're going too. Like if you're only going overnight, you don't need like 6 weeks worth of food, right? Pare down, give yourself some choice. You're going to be home tomorrow. So if you hate everything in your bag, you're going to eat tomorrow. So don't worry about it. But you should definitely have, even on a day hike, you should take snacks. So well, there's my whole prepping set. I'm going to do a whole series on prepping and my love of canned meat. But that's a different. Me too. Me too. I have enough canned meat. I could last. Cindy has a food dehydrator. I also do because I dehydrate fruit and meat and venison. Cindy, what are you making in your dehydrator? Cindy, what do you make? What are you making in your dehydrator?
I have a cookbook that maybe even two that have different recipes.
What did you make so far?
Well, my son, when he was in high school, he was the one we got him behind and he his first night of eating that. And I just remember that it was like 10 years ago. It was hysterical. So since then, we'll just try a variety of different things. And they always turn out great because they're like
Do you take the dehydrator with you? You make it at home and then
we make it at home,
and then take it along. That's awesome. I make fruit mine and I dehydrate meat. That's what I feel like about ramen noodles. Like I don't like them at home, but I like them on trail with some spam in there. And it sounds disgusting, and it does sound disgusting. But peanut butter crackers, the ones you get from like get like 1,000 for $10. You crumble that into the ramen with the spam. It's delicious. Never eat that like in real life, but for whatever reason. Yeah. You're so much more willing to eat some. I'll eat stuff off the ground when I'm backpacking. Like I have no standards, that there's no hygiene going on. So dehydrators are a lot of fun to play with. Another question about meals: how many days worth of food do you suggest to pack at the start of the trip? Depends on your trip, right? Right. It depends on you and your trip. But if you're doing a long distance trip, on the Appalachian Trail. Now, this is not true for the PCT and some other trails, right? This only applies to the AT, and that's the only long trail that I do that. And I'm planning to do Florida Trail. But for the Appalachian Trail, you're going to be stopping every 3 to 4 days until you get to the 100-mile wilderness. And even there, you can get food drops. So you're going to only pack enough for 3 to 4 days because you're going to go from town to town because you have to shower, right? You do want to shower eventually. And you do what's called a resupply. So if you're going on a 10-day trip, you're going to be stopping twice in there to get food. So you don't have to pack for Katahdin or at Springer. And one of my favorite memories from last year going to Springer is we met a thru hiker named Thor that we named Thor. And he had, he was ex-military. I can spot him from 100 miles away. He had the military pack. If you know what that looks like, it's that alone empty is heavy. Anyway, so we see him and he had 20. I'm gonna mute everybody just cause somebody's got their mic open. He had 20 meals on him, and he didn't need 20 meals because he was going to be stopping in 3 days at Neil Gap. So you only have to pack for till you get to the next spot where you're going to resupply again. Now, one of the reasons you might want to stop at a hostel or to a place that caters to hikers is that, like on my porch, I have a hiker box here. So for example, if you buy a box of Ziploc bags, you don't want to carry that entire box of Ziploc bags with you. You know, so somebody will buy a box of Ziplocs. I actually have the hiker box stocked with Ziploc bags in it, and then they can just grab them and then they share them. So like if there's a food you don't like if you don't like salmon and you bought 3 packs because they were $3 for $1 at the Walmart, right? And you don't like it, you put that in the hiker box and then the next person can pick it up. So when you're hiking long distance, you stop at these little spots, check out the hiker box. The hiker boxes down south are fantastic because they have a whole lot of stuff in it that nobody wants to carry. Tomahawks, you know, big, heavy stuff that people are like, I'm going to need this heavy tarp. And then they're like, oh my gosh, I have to carry this heavy tarp. So I'm not going to carry it. So they put it in the hiker boxes. But when you get more up toward Pennsylvania, people have sort of worked out their gear if they're northbound. And so now you're swapping food. You know, you bought, for the women, like you bought a whole big box of, tampons that was, that was cheaper, but you don't want to carry them all with you. So, you take what you need and then you leave it in the hiker box and then the next female hiker can come through and get them. So a lot of hikers share that way. We do a lot of swapping too, especially since I'm a section hiker. When I know I'm getting off the trail, I'll find through hikers and give them my food and I'll take their garbage, so that they can save that one little trip, and it makes it just a little bit easier on them. I'll hand out jerky and stuff like that. I always take extra for hikers that I've come across. Amazon has several books on dehydrating. I have an alcohol setup that might lessen fears. Oh, Jim, tell us about the alcohol setup.
So I have here, this is what they call the Caldera Pearl. So it's just a piece of rolled, I guess it's aluminum, and it has a seams that it's custom for whatever so when you put your alcohol down underneath, and it does a couple of things. It follows all the heat up into the log, so it's more efficient. But it's also really hard to not only your log, and thirdly, and probably most important, is that anything does catch fire